that supply to the general public and also to the emergency management respondents, and also to anyone that needs that particular power. So SKELEC is integrated into the National Disaster Management Framework as part of the Utilities Subcommittee. That subcommittee, which is chaired by a permanent secretary, will bring together all these organizations and help them and guide them in terms of having a strategic plan to respond to, manage, and recover from the impacts of those, and also to integrate mitigation actions for their sustainability in terms of providing that service. So that is how SKELEC is integrated into the whole scheme of disaster management. We have periodic meetings in which SKELEC in itself participate, and they advise the council itself as to the measures they are taking. For example, we know that they have strategic plans with regional partners to be able to supplement the human resource in the event that we are overwhelmed. I know, for example, we get information on the strategic plan of resiliency, even with fuel, human resource, technical equipment, and all of that. So what that does for the NEMA is then it positions us to be able to know strategically which donor partners or international partners will be able to complement and support the Federation in the event that our energy suppliers are impacted severely.
Thank you so much, Abdias. I think it's important to make that link. I know when a storm has passed, the first thing people get antsy about is when their power is going to be restored. And that is why SKELEC has to ensure that preparation is key for our own infrastructure, for our own buildings, and so that we can get power back to our consumers as quickly and safely as possible. So yes, we have all of these plans in place, and NEMA is a trusted partner in helping us to ensure that those plans remain updated. Now, Mr. Burke, you mentioned that you are the Director of Meteorology.
Yes.
Now, whenever some weather condition is approaching, I don't want to use the terms, but whenever weather conditions are approaching, advisories start to come out. Can you take this opportunity to share with the public what are some of these different types of advisories and what is the difference between the different types?
Okay, thanks for that question, Patrice. As you ask, what we usually do once a system, or whether it be a cyclone or any kind of feature, is expected to affect us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have different phases of alert, so to speak. So the first one we would do is a general advisory, or sometimes we do information to let persons know that there is something that we are monitoring. Then once there is a potential for it to reach in our vicinity, we start to issue some of these advisory information, and then we move into the alert stage. And then as it becomes more almost certain that it's likely to impact us, then we move into what we call a watch phase, and then into a warning phase. When we're in a warning phase is usually once the weather feature or phenomena is either impacting us or expected to impact us imminently.
Is there a particular time frame that each one is issued?
Well, in terms of the warning, we are looking at, especially for cyclones, I'm going to be specific for cyclones. When we issue a cyclone warning, we're looking at 36 hours before expected impact.
Okay.
When we are looking at cyclone watch, so that is whether it be a tropical storm watch or hurricane watch, we are looking at the possible conditions affecting us within the next 48 hours. And you note the change. One is expected and one is possible. So the level of certainty changes, as well as the timeline as well. And we issue the advisories and the alerts once it reaches within our watch area, which is about 800 miles away from us. So from the time we start to monitor it closely for potential impact to us, we will start to issue these alerts or advisories.
All right, so that means that persons need to pay attention. When you see an alert, it's 800 miles within our area, a watch. 48 hours for possible impacts, and a warning is 36 hours before impacts.
Yes.
I hope that the public actually sees these advisories and pay attention and start to begin preparation. So, Mr. Samuel, tell us about that. How does NEMA ensure that the communication is effective to the public, and hopefully that we get some action based on the communication?
There is a multi-pronged approach to our communication methodologies once we are notified of a potential, right? And Mr. Burke would have used some word possible, he would have used the words possible or something that is imminent. No, we start with our broadcast system. Our broadcast is using television, radio, social media platforms, as well as our partnership with the telecommunication service providers such as Flow, Digicel, and the cable and City Wi-Fi, where they will use their platforms. They will send out WhatsApp messages. They will also send out SMS messages to all telephone users, customers, and they will get that information. So once we start into the watch area, we notify the public that we are watching this particular system. Once we go into the watch, then we notify the public that we're in a watch phase and this is what is likely to happen, right? And then when we go into the warning phase, now that is when we start to activate our national systems and then become more direct. Inclusive of that, then we use our volunteer core groups, that's our community groups, who will start to walk through the communities and they will reach those vulnerable groups. Now, as Elmo would have indicated, there's a series of events that will take place once we go into that warning phase in particular, which will be one, there will be an address first by the media houses. We will ask the media houses to put out some information. Then, when it comes to about 48 to 36 hours thereabout, I will address the country as the head of the office. After that, then the last address will be by the Prime Minister, which about 24 to 12 hours pre-impact. He will address the nation to prepare the nation, and that will be the last clarion call, so to speak, for the nation to mobilize. During that time, we will be communicating with our international and regional partners, our national stakeholders, in terms of notifying them on a different level. This is a different level of communication, such as yourselves, to ensure that we begin that preparation mode, and then we will go from that preparation mode into the operational mode at the National Emergency Operations Center. And we continue our broadcast from there to the general public using our all platforms available to us.
So if someone were to say that he or she is not aware, it just means that they're not paying close enough attention.
They're not paying close attention. Yeah.
Because based on what you've mentioned, there are several platforms that you're utilizing. You're working with your partners as well to ensure that information gets out to the public.
Definitely.
Now, Mr. Samuel and Mr. Burke, while you're here, it's not a question that I had prepared, but one that just crossed my mind. Can you give us an understanding as to what are some of the projections for this hurricane season that we're in? All right, okay. Over to Burke.
Okay, thanks for the question, Patrice. What we are looking at is an hyperactive season this year. And when we say hyperactive season, and just to give you context, I'm going to give you what an average season based on the 1991 to 2020 average we are looking at. So for an average season, we are looking at about 14 storms developing. 7 of those usually develop into hurricanes, and of those 7 hurricanes, we usually have 3 developing to major hurricanes. And when we say major hurricanes, we're speaking about categories 3, 4, and 5. Or if you're looking at wind speeds, you're looking at categories 3 would be 111 miles per hour to 129 miles per hour. Category 4, 130 to 156. And category 5, which is 157 and above. So that is what we are looking at in terms of for an average season. Note I said for this year, unfortunately, all indications are hinting towards a hyperactive season, a well above average season. The initial forecast put out by the Colorado State University, which is one of the premier institutions who put out these seasonal forecasts, is suggesting that we are likely to see about 23 storms developing, and of these 23 storms developing the Atlantic Basin, 11 of those may develop into hurricanes, and out of those 11 hurricanes, we may have 5 major hurricanes developing. And this is unprecedented.
Wow.
Colorado State University within the last 40 years has never gone in for such a prediction at the start in April.
Wow.
Yes.
So, Mr. Samuel, considering such, where are we? Tell us about what are some of the preparation efforts that the agency has undergone and even to assist some of its stakeholders in terms of preparation.
Excellent. So what we have been doing, let's start with locally or nationally. We have been mobilizing our national subcommittees, which is a public-private sector partnership. So they have been meeting. There are 10 such national subcommittees, which ensures that we cover all social, infrastructural, and economic sustainability of us. And those have been mobilized, they have been meeting, they have been carrying out training. Our National Emergency Operations Center, we have had some training in that area which you yourself participated to ensure that when you sleep at Nemo, you are able to strategically...
What is this when?
Right? So you are able to strategically guide the actions of the SKELEC in terms of what is needed, right, to restore. Yes. As you said, restore the power to your customer base. So those strategic meetings, those strategic training have been happening. Regionally and internationally, we would have had yesterday an address by the Executive Director of SEDEMA, Miss Elizabeth Riley, where St. Kitts and Nevis hosted the annual Hurricane Conference that SEDEMA hosts or convenes every year. And she would have indicated in that the different levels of support, the different levels of preparation that have been taken at the regional level. We are confident of the regional system being able to support us even if we have a multi-island state. Internationally, we have been having exercises with our partners in terms of the US government, the UK, the UN branch, the United Nations branches. As a matter of fact, as we speak right now, there is an ongoing engagement with UNICEF where we are adopting a tool to be able to manage children and the risk associated to children from different hazards, including cyclonic activities. So all those exercises are ongoing. We have had strategic meetings with the strategic level, which is the government level. Those meetings have been going well in terms of the government providing the resources for us to be able to prepare and be able to respond to. So those are the preparations. I know we will be releasing our shelter list very soon so that persons know where to. We have been carrying out a number of public awareness campaigns such as what we are doing now to ensure that the general public, using our social media platforms, we have been putting out guidance to people, to the general public, my apologies, to the general public, so the general public can have guidance, they can have information and actions they can take to either one, have a plan, or two, simple steps they can take now to prepare for this unprecedented season. And Patrice, let me just say, I am very much concerned that there is no sense of urgency. I'm not getting that sense of urgency from all sectors in particular to prepare. This is an unprecedented season. This is like no other. Mr. Burke would have outlined the numbers. And you know what's beautiful for me is that the European models, the American models, and all other models, all of them are aligning to the same thing. That's frightening. But our job is not to frighten the public, but rather for them to partner with the state in getting ready for this season. It only takes one. Today, there's in Jamaica, there's a reflection by CRIF, that's the parametric insurance company, and what they are doing is that they're having 20 years after Ivan. We have enough examples, and I keep saying the same thing over and over. We have enough examples in the region for us to be able to know what to do, what action to take to prepare ourselves for and recover from. We are a small island state. With limited resources. We have to manage what we have, and the only way we could manage that is for the people to accept personal responsibility and the state to be able to support the needs of the general public once we are affected.
That was actually the next question. The next two questions I was about to ask about helping the public to prepare and to get a better understanding. I think probably because we haven't had a major storm in quite a while, and we know that we are blessed. We think that the blessings will continue to extend and persons have become complacent. But we have been seeing some abnormal weather patterns throughout the year already. The heat, we've been seeing flooding in areas that we haven't. I'm young, I've never seen those areas flood. And I'm hoping that those would have been indicators to the public to say, hey, go and do what you need to get done to prepare your homes, to prepare your family. Because if we can reduce the loss in the damage in life, we'll be in a much better state.
But Patrice, let me just put it into better context. How many persons have experienced those hot days or days where we are having high temperatures for the past 4 to 5 days? How many individuals have experienced that? That in itself is an indicator. It's a physical indicator, tangible indicator that, hey, something is coming. We have to prepare. We want divine intervention. Well, we had a wonderful church service. I wish it could happen every day. However, we have to be now realistic and put our foot on the ground. We have to be prepared. I prefer that we over-prepare, we overemphasize preparedness, as opposed to being unprepared. What I foresee, if we don't get that sense of urgency increase, Patrice, is that persons are going to rush in the last minute, and then we're going to have Elmo and Maria all over again, where those countries that were affected and impacted, it was reactive, as opposed to being prepared for that impact. This is where I want to take St. Kitts and Nevis along with, we want to take St. Kitts and Nevis, right? In a level of preparedness that once it comes, we are prepared to handle whatever comes and then bounce back quickly, build back better. Yeah? This is where we want to, and stronger. So I'm passionate about it because, I have to listen to the science. Elmo is right there. And we heard it from the director of SEDEMA, and I had a deep conversation with her afterwards. We spent about 1 hour meeting. And this is where our concern. The urgency versus complacency.
Mr. Samuel, I'm going to take this opportunity now to open the lines to any person who is listening, who wants to ask a question, who wants to hear any concern. This is a two-way communication with our public, the listening audience. Please feel free to call now. But until they start doing so, until I get indications of calls, let's start sharing some tips with the public. And we also have some from SKELEC's end. We have our own hurricane preparedness campaign, and we want you to tune into our social media pages, tune into ZIZ, listen out for our PSAs, look at the tips that we are putting out, because the storm is one set of damage, but sometimes after the storm, based on the actions of the people, we end up in way more challenges. So we have to ensure that persons take the appropriate precaution. So I'll start with you, Mr. Samuel, the tips, and I'll add in some as well.
Great. And Elmo, I guess.
Yes, please, Elmo.
Definitely. We can't just use him for the weather. He has a lot of information to share. First thing first I would like people to do is develop an emergency plan for your home. Just have a plan. Take 3-4 minutes and just simply say, okay, if something happens, where do we go? Who do we call? Okay? Where in our house do we find is a safe spot? Okay? So before you could categorize it in 3 ways: before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. Those 3 categories, and say, what actions are we going to take before the storm? Check our property, check our doors, our windows, check on the roof, check our drainage systems, secure our valuable assets within the house. Okay, there are some that you could prioritize, say, okay, I can lose this, or I may not need, I don't want to lose this. So you secure those, you categorize what you want. Okay, so those are some pre-activities: trimming your trees, securing your vehicles. Again, documents which are important, and most importantly, having a little cash. Put some cash aside. We saw what happened in the BVI, where the banking system went down. and then persons who made lines, and they ended up vandalizing some of the banks just because they couldn't get access to money. Don't find yourself in that line. Have a little cash if you can. Okay. If you're having challenges, feel free to contact some of our government agencies or social programs to see what they can do for you. Okay. Or ask your neighbor. We have to have that patriotic spirit during the storm. If you don't go and seek shelter and you stay within your house, find the area in your house which is stronger, which you think can sustain some of those impacts from the wind and the rain. Okay, so it's important to identify that particular area. So huddle your family together and you all go to that area and stay there during the storm. Okay, make sure you have some level of communication if you can. All right, make sure you have some lighting. Make sure you have an emergency kit with you during the storm. Some clothing, some basic essentials, your medication if necessary, means of communication, means of lighting. Have a little searchlight or something. And also those small battery radios. Have that with you so that you can listen to the authorities. Okay? After the storm, if you have not been severely impacted, please do not go outside to wander until we give you the all clear. There's 2 all clears that we issue. The all clear for essential services to be out on the road, and then we give the general all clear for you to access the public space. Okay, so please be guided by what we say. So there's a basic plan, and I wanna just pause on that. That's a basic plan that you can put together. Easy as that. Before,
so we'll take a pause quickly. We have a call and we want to hear what the caller has to say. So, good morning, caller. You're live.
Good morning to you. I want to tell you on the ear that I don't always home listening to the program every time you come on, so you cannot done with me.
Lulu, good morning. How are you, Lulu? It's happy to have you back on the program. I missed you.
Thank you all there for your heads up with the plan for if we have any weather. And I'm glad you say you must always have a radio with battery. Because right now there's no current, so I want to know what's going on.
There is a planned maintenance outage in your area, Miss Jeffers. Unfortunately, that is why you don't have power. The guys are there doing some work and it should be back by 3 p.m. So I hope you're not too hot at home.
I'm not arguing. I'm home, so I have my radio. I have 2 of these current. They both of them what we current. But since I have the one with the batteries, I'm glad you said get a battery.
That is very smart of you, Lulu.
Yes, so I called my neighbor. I said, you have current? She said, I want to know if we can drop down by the transformer. So he said, no, the current gone away. There was a way I didn't know because I was out to the when I come in the current in the field.
Yes, the power should be off from about 9 to 3, but it will be back, hopefully, it will be back between that time or before that time or at that time. They're doing some maintenance work. But thank you for calling. I really missed you.
I don't always home and I don't always, sometimes I don't have the radio when you are on like a Wednesday. I want to thank you all as usual for your service. You all are my #1 working place. I want to pick up you all and say, I want you all to know that we are praying for you when you go out to work, especially when you're up on the post and so I look down and want to know how you all get up there, but this stuff is and you all are working well. So everybody have a blessed day.
All right, thank you for calling. Thank you. Mr. Samuel, before Mr. was called, you were speaking about some of the tips and you spoke about a kit. We are putting out a kit in our customer area, a hurricane kit. It's just a sample of some items. When we started going through the list, it's so many things you can put into a kit. So for those persons who might be a bit confused, don't know where to start, you can go down into our main office and you can look at our sample hurricane kit and some tips that we have there that we're sharing with the public to help you with preparation. Now, Mr. Samuel spoke about tree trimming, and I want to take this opportunity to say to you, if there are trees in the lines near you, you need to call SKELEC to come and cut them. We don't advise that members of the public go and cut the trees themselves because you might create another hazard, which means that persons in your area, in a larger area other than you, might be out of power for a period of time. We don't want any electrocution, any shocks, any of these things. If you see trees in the lines near you, please give us a call. The number to call is 465-2013. 465-2013. We have definitely ramped up our tree cutting efforts, especially as the hurricane season has now started. So we have crews, we have contractors who are out there ensuring that our infrastructure, the lines, are clear. So please, any trees in the lines near you, please give us a call to cut them. And if I were you, I will start memorizing SKELEC's emergency number and all of the emergency numbers. You never know when you might need to contact us, and you don't want to be in a position where you don't know who to call or what number to call. So our emergency number is 465-2013. Please commit that to memory, and I think Mr. Samuel can give you some more emergency numbers.
So it's important. Know your numbers for NEMA, 466-5100, and when we activate the NEOC, we will then post the emergency numbers, and always remember the 911 center. They too will be able to provide you with more information and guidance if you find yourself in that need.
Right. So Burke, what tips do you have to share with us as well?
Just to add to what Mr. Samuel would have indicated, 2 additional tips I would suggest is have up-to-date insurance, property insurance, especially when it comes to your house and your valuables, because you don't want a case that you get damaged and then you're not fully covered, or you're not adequately covered and then you lose out. Also, it's important to know the authoritative source for information during this time, because you find a lot of persons go to the social media in terms of the wide web for their information. But what we always ask you to do, the authoritative source in Sinkis and Nevis when it comes to disaster preparedness is the disaster offices at NEMA and the NDMD. When it comes to the weather, it's the local med service. So we are here to provide you that information. And when it comes to, in terms of the critical sectors, the utilities, you know them. SKELEC is right there. Call SKELEC if you want to know about electricity. Don't go and ask somebody on social media, because you may get wrong information and take the wrong action. So it's important to know the authoritative source for this information. So those are the 2 tips that I would like to add to what Mr. Samuel said.
Very critical tips. We look at some of these places that were struck by Irma Maria, and you just see the homes there because there was no insurance and there is no way that the persons can afford to rebuild. And insurance is, and also the appropriate insurance, because sometimes you under-insure your homes, and then again, it's the after the storm, It's the after the storm where we witness a lot of these challenges. So, gentlemen, I'm going to allow you the opportunity to wrap up. We're at the end of this program, nice and easy and simple. I know that you'll be back, and I'm going to allow you to share any parting words, tidbits with the members of the general public, whether it is about preparation, the season that we are in, and anything that you need them to know.
Okay, I'll start off. Thanks for that, Patrice. Again, I would like to remind the general public we are bearing down a hyperactive season, and this is not to scare you, but it's to urge you into action. The time for you to prepare is now. Start your preparation now. All the scientists have indicated that we are likely to see a well above average season. It doesn't mean that we're going to be impacted by all the storms, but if we are impacted by one storm and we are not prepared, then it can become a disaster. So start preparing now.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Mr. Samuel?
Patrice, I think I have shared my emotions with the general public. I just want to appeal to them for one thing: their support and partnership. Once we have that, I think we can weather the storm.
Yes, we have to be our neighbor's keeper. We have to help each other. Mr. Samuel spoke earlier about the community activation in identifying vulnerable groups. Nobody knows these individuals better than you. You know your neighbor, the persons across the street, next door, what particular assistance they might need. So I am taking this opportunity as well to encourage you to be your brother's keeper, be the eyes and ears for SKELEC as well. We rely on you to assist us with knowing where faults are on the grid especially during a storm or any sort of climatic conditions. It could be high wind, thunderstrike, rain, we get soil erosion, the poles slip. We want you to help us to identify where these challenges are. The more and the quicker you're able to help us to identify them, then we can put these faults into our own mechanism to determine which areas we're going to be restoring. We crave your patience during hurricane season. We crave your patience whenever there is a strike, primarily because safety is our #1 priority, and we do not put our crews at risk to try to restore power in severe weather conditions. They only restore power when it is safe to do so. They have families as well. Nobody's out during the storm doing any work. Mr. Samuel ensures of that. Nobody is out in the storm doing any work. And so when it is safe to do so, we go out and we scout, see what damage has taken place, and then we activate our restoration efforts. I want the public to understand that. And that's why we're asking you to be prepared. Have canned food, have battery powered items, devices to keep your phones charged so that you can remain connected. Don't take it for granted. Like, I can just go to the ATM, I can go and get food on the day. Preparation is very, very important. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Samuel and Mr. Burke. Thanks. Remember that SKELEC is the nation's leading utility provider, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Bye bye.